Hey everybody, and welcome back to the 1v1 podcast. I am your host Vlhadus, and I could not be more excited today to bring you this 1v1 to, I don't know, maybe like a million years in the making, if for what it seems.
I mean, definitely at least, what was it, February when you first reached out to me?
It's been a minute, man. I think as soon as I got my 1v1, because I mean, there were certain content creators that before I even started doing my content in January, that I really liked, that I really wanted to, talk to. And I'm like, hey, if I'm gonna have a podcast, I would love to talk to these individuals. And you were definitely one of them. So without further ado, of course, you know this guy, Ritchie. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Glad to be here, finally.
I know, dude. I know my guests are gonna be so stoked to finally get to see you in long form and get to hear your opinions on Ashes. Because go for
It's
it.
funny because I even get comments saying, hey, when are you going to do a Vlhadus 1v1? I've had a few of those pop up on my channel, so.
Dude, well, I'm glad because I don't know, man. I think especially now, I think right now specifically, the information's ramping up. There's more hype right now surrounding Ashes of Creation. And I don't know, I think it's been really positive. It's been really good. And dude, I just got to say, man, as a content creator, you are a machine. You pump out content, dude. Like, it staggers my brain that you have a full-time job, a family, kids, and still do all that content, man. I literally tip my hat to you, sir, because God, my wife would kill me.
The key part is waiting until nobody's in the house.
Right.
I spend more, like, I have to break up my whole process. So, like, I'll do a script on my lunch break at work, or I'll at least start the process of the script. And then when the kids are in school, I'll record, I'll come home that night, I'll make thumbnail, and it's like broken up into like a 3 or 4 4-hour chunks.
But dude, I don't know, man, that's dedication, man. And the passion you have. I mean, it's one of the main reasons why I subscribed to your channel super early. And again, like, you're consistent. I think the other thing that a lot of Ashes people, especially when they start Ashes content, is they don't see those big numbers. They see 100 views, 200 views, 90 views, and they get really discouraged really quickly, and then they just fall off and stop making content. And some of those people, I thought, like, if they just would have stuck with it, you know what I mean? Like, that's how YouTube kind of works. And the YouTube algorithm is kind of crappy, man. Like, let's just be honest here. Like, I specifically look for Ashes content creators, and the algorithm doesn't spit them out to me. I'll see one that I've never seen before on the Ashes of Creation Discord, and I'm like, I've never seen that guy get fed to me before. Like, I'll click on his video. So, or I get people that recommend it, like, hey Vlhadus, have you checked out this content creator or whatever? I'm like, no, never have, because I've never come across them. You know what I mean? So, but I think, honestly, dude, like, outside of Narc, you are the biggest content creator for Ashes of Creation. Like, I mean, seriously, like, I mean, you have a great following, you have great content. Like, I mean, dude, honestly, like, I am trying to get to your level. It's just my job is definitely way more, how should I say it, like, demanding a little bit, but also too, I think finding those ways to, like, finish your scripts and everything like that, during your lunch break and all that, it's that dedication and that passion, man. I'm not saying that I don't have it, but dude, you got it, bro.
Yeah,
got it.
And I'm glad. Like, I like the appreciation on that. But one of my hardest things is there is so much more that I would love to do with my videos in editing that I just don't have time to do. So you get a ton. Like, I mean, you might even notice, like, some of the videos, like, I'll cut like 3 or 4 videos together and throw up my logo on it and talk and call it good. But one of the things I learned, because before I started doing Ashes content, I did a lot of Sea of Thieves content, and those are still, the algorithm loves those videos. Those are even today are my best performing videos, and they're 2 to 3 years old. So
wow.
Every time I stop and I take, like, I'm going to take a couple days off, or I'm going to take a week off, YouTube shifts me back towards Sea of Thieves, it feel like, and my Ashes views drop and the Sea of Thieves views start going up. So I'm like, if I don't continuously pump them out, it seems like it just goes right back to Sea of Thieves.
Wow. And I guess for me, right, like, well, actually, I won't even get into that. The one thing I want to get into is you. Like, a lot of people like know you for Ashes of Creation. I don't know if you know if you've ever went in depth in like your MMO history and stuff like that, but just a quick breakdown of like what MMOs have you played? Like, where has all that knowledge accumulated from the past couple of years?
So majority of time was definitely World of Warcraft. I think that is the MMO I played throughout middle school and high school with all my friends. I mean, I've done Guild Wars 2. I'm playing New World every once in a while here when I really need something to do. Um, I have, what else do I have? Archage. I've played a little bit of Archage, which I've actually tried to get into
I couldn't.
since Ashes of Creation because it's one of those games
Yeah.
that it seems like Ashes really takes a lot of inspiration from that and Lineage, which I never played Lineage, but um yeah, right now it's most I've been playing Dragonflight Beta a little bit here and there, and then New World and when I have time to play games.
Yeah, dude, because I don't know where you get this time. It's like you live in a 48-hour planet or something. I don't know. Like, because I know as a content creator how stressful it can be to hit some of the deadlines, at least for myself. And I now do one video every 2 weeks. I do my 1v1s every week, which has been very fortunate that I've been able to get guests and new guests, mind you, like every week. And then now I'm doing my Reaction Friday videos. And just doing all that, you know what I mean? Like is something, but do you'd pump out sometimes 2-3 videos in a
Yeah.
week, like
I mean,
every week. Like
the past, I was actually just looking at it, I think the past 10 days, if you count YouTube Shorts, I've
right.
done a video every single day.
Jesus.
But YouTube Shorts take me, those, I love those because they're
Right.
easy. They take like 10,
Right.
15 minutes to put together. It's just a short 60-second video. Call it good, put it on the channel, which some of them do well, some of them like 100, 200
Right.
views, but still views. So
Right. I mean, honestly, like I enjoy YouTube Shorts, and honestly, Theory Forge, shout out to the Ashen Forge podcast. They do a lot of shorts too, and they do basically just cut up Steven interviews, and they'll do like a question of his. I like those, and they're really short. You know what I mean? They're basically just like him. They ask a question, Steven answers it, and that's the whole short. And honestly, my wife was saying, "Babe, like I'll do that for you. Like I'll go through, you know, interviews or the Q&A and some of the things and just do that." And I'm like, babe, that'd be freaking awesome, and just make me a crap ton of those and I'll just feed them into YouTube's short thing. So I mean, but that's interesting. So you came from World of Warcraft, you played all these other MMOs, and mind you, I think a lot of them do sound very theme parkish, because I'm a WoW Andy myself, so I'm a theme park Andy. So what got you towards the project? Like, what actually was it? The Lazy Peon video in 2020? Was it something before that kind of led you to Ashes?
So if you look, I have been making Ashes videos since December of 2018. I think is my first one.
Oh my god.
So
Okay.
yeah. So coincidentally, not consistently like I am now. That's been more of this year since they're actually giving a ton of content this year, like
True.
The character creator and the combat and all that. But really, I was doing Sea of Thieves videos, and one of the other Sea of Thieves content creators that I actually did, or I talked to a lot, actually pointed out the Ashes of Creation Kickstarter page to me at one point. So that's actually where I heard of it. And then as I dug into it and read more about it, it's like it's one of those games. It's like, all right, I don't want to miss out on this, and I really am interested in it. So just gonna see where it goes.
And that's it. Like, so you just been doing that ever since?
Yeah. That's simple, apparently.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I mean, I know for me, like I'm a peon, you know, converter or whatever. You know, I saw the I think I was watching Asmongold's stream in July of 2020, and that's what kind of got me into this whole mess of, oh my god. But I was still very much invested in WoW at that time. So I didn't really convert, which god, I freaking wish I did, man. I wish I did Alpha 1. I look at your footage, Ritchie, and I'm like, dude, I look at Zillin's footage, just everybody that was playing, like, you know, Alpha 1, and it just looked it looked like a game that I could really sink my teeth into. And so
I mean, even just Alpha, like it was like that nostalgia feeling, like that thing that you're trying to get, which it might have just been, you know, it was something new, and but like the entire time I played the Alpha, that never faded, and it wasn't a content test. It wasn't filled with quests and dungeons and raids, or some of them, but even with that minimal content and like half of the features not even in the game yet, it felt good
Dude.
and it really helped sink in. But going back to the lazy peon video you talked about,
Mhm.
um, so when that came out and Asmongold did it, and then I think Summit did it, and a whole bunch of
Right.
other
Tim
creators
the
did
Tip
it.
Man. Yep.
I think I gained like 800 subscribers from Ash's creation in that first month because it was
Oh my god.
it was me. I mean, there was Ash's content creators. I think
Yeah.
Paradox Gaming
Right.
was one of the bigger ones, and then the Golden Feather podcast, which I love
Right.
those guys.
Right.
Were really the only ones. So like all
Mhm.
of the content was going straight to my channel, and I rode that wave. And I just it was the same thing I'm doing now. Essentially, is I think I put like 10 videos out back to back to
Right.
back every single day, and it just took off.
I mean, again, that's, I think, and here's the thing, like I've talked to so many people that just, from the Ashes Discord, and just talking just to people who consume Ashes content. And I asked them, like, what do you want to see? People talk Ashes. Like it's not rocket science. Like I'm being dead serious. A lot of them just want someone to talk something about Ashes. Like all
Yep.
they want is to click on a video that's Ashes related, and then just, even if it's an opinion video, that's all they want. It's nothing really too special. Now the bigger issue, or not the issue, but I guess the bigger question is, how do we reach those people plus all the people that aren't as interested in Ashes of Creation? Like how do we get to like Narc's level of being 30K views, 50K views, even 100K views on, our videos? Like I think that's kind of like what it is. So I think definitely if any content creator is set out to be the next Narc, it is your channel and you. I'm telling you that right now.
So I don't. I mean, I like Narc's videos. It's not entirely my thing. I think we've talked about this before. It's like, but
Yes.
I think Narc is a great content creator. Like in the
Oh, for
skits
sure.
he does, and I think that's what pulls people in. It's like those skits in the beginning. It's just like,
Right.
yeah. I mean, you hear like your first 30 seconds is like the most important part of the channel because
Right.
it's whether you hook people in or they leave and go watch something else.
Right.
So I don't think I'll ever be on Narc's level of a channel just because like it's not the type of content that I'll ever do. But I still like just having my audience and growing that and going from there. But
No, for sure. I don't know if I actually kind of want to talk about it now because it's just so in my mind, and I just finished watching the video and I was going to make a reaction video about this, but I've already watched it, so it's like it's disingenuous to make it. But
I already know where
you
you're
already
going
know
with
what I'm
it, I
going to talk
think.
about, dude. So let's talk about your recent video, because I know when people see this, it's probably not his recent video because there's probably going to be 23 other videos that you probably saw between now and then. But the video I'm referring to is Ashes of Creation will release in 2023.
Well, I had a moment there.
I
So if you haven't been able to tell, and it's actually funny because like I'm in Narc's Discord and I see them
oh, I
joking
am
like,
too.
"Oh, Richie just put out a Fifth Ranger video," and I'm like, "Yep, yes, I did put out a Fifth Ranger video because, unfortunately, I have talked about almost everything that is out for Ash's content in some way or another. So like now I'm at the point where it's like I want to consistently put out videos, but I'm also trying to stretch the limited content I have to basically get until from live stream to live stream.
Right.
So as you've been able to tell, I have my what I want out of the Ranger video, Ranger video breakdown, my thoughts on the Ranger video, and like just all of these 5 videos, which are different in their
Right.
own way, but still surrounding that same subject. And honestly, it's kind of funny. But then I was thinking I do a lot of again, my lunch break is when I do half my brainstorming, and I'll just be scrolling through like YouTube or Twitter or Reddit and seeing what people are talking about. And the one that always pops up is Ash's release dates. So, and honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I actually believe it'd be out in 2023.
You can't go back on it, Richie. You made a whole video about it. You can't go back on it.
but like in a way, the way as I did more in that video, like it makes sense. Like there is no way that the base of Vera is not there with 7 years of gameplay footage from Intrepid. Like it might not be all 100% finished or even like 50% finished, but I think the world itself is built for the game.
Hmm.
And then, like, we've seen nodes functioning, we've seen
Right.
caravans working, we've seen combat kit or class kits with the weapon master and the basic melee weapon stream. We've
Hmm.
seen the like basic features like quest working, the abilities working, and I think again, like I said in my video, combat is the one thing that's really preventing Intrepid from going further than they can right now. Because again, you don't want to put all this effort into making class kits and making abilities based around the combat system that isn't even finished yet. So it's just kind of it's definitely a stretch, but I'd say it's not impossible to see Ashes of Creation by next year.
Okay, I was just waiting for you to finish. Are you finished, Richie?
Yeah, you're
Okay. So here's my thing. Feedback in Alpha 2 is going to be super interesting from like the monthly development perspective. What are we going to be getting from the monthly live streams once Alpha 2 is out? The feedback correspondence between us and Intrepid, how that actually interplays and goes. If you look into Alpha 1, right, people weren't really digging the melee root motion when it came to
yeah.
melee. And then literally within a week's feedback, the following week, they gave y'all the toggle on tab to go from root motion to split body. Now, depending on what they choose to do, because a lot of people have a lot of, I'm not going to call them misconceptions, but they have a lot of ideas on how Alpha 2 is going to be tested. People think that the game is just going to be open. You can do whatever you want. You can test the classes. You can go do naval. You can go do this. You can go do that. I think that would be a very big mistake if they did that, at least right off the start, if they did it that way.
I agree.
They need to do force testing. They need to where as soon as Alpha 2 opens up, they needed to have like a week or 2 weeks to do a singular system and go deep in that system. A lot of times when you look at a game like New World, they opened up the game to where you can do whatever you want to do, but that lets you go very wide, but not too deep. And it's always when we actually really get in the nitty gritty of systems and go deeper that we find those core issues and bugs and problems, or those pain points that it's like, this doesn't feel good to do repeatedly, or whatever the case is. I feel for how massive Ashes of Creation already is as a core game. I don't know if even if the turnaround is completely positive and we're all lemmings in the Alpha 2 and we're just like, yes, Intrepid, this feature you released is great. Like, we all love it. All the community is in agreement of it. I feel like even if that was the case, to test everything in its interconnectivity, I don't know if that's going to be less than a year. I really don't. And again, like, I feel it's way more realistic to probably have a year and a half, maybe even 2 years of Alpha 2. I mean, look at how broken New World was when it released.
Yep.
After a year, now we're going to have the Bridgestone Sands. I don't quote me if that's the name, but now, and people say it's a lot better, but there's certain people say that there's still a lot that's needed to be done.
Yep.
And I think, you agree with that. You play New World, you understand where that's coming from. And again, I think especially with games as a service, you're never truly going to be done, right?
Yeah.
But I think we as players deserve to be at a point of completion that feels good to play, not only at a starting position, but at an end game position. Because most MMOs, like New World, probably felt really, people were praising New World from 1 to 30 when it launched. But after from 31 to end game was the real problem.
Yeah.
And I don't want Ashes to fall into that. I don't think any MMO should fall into that. So, I mean, we could talk a little bit about it, you know what I mean? But I just personally think that, especially if they're going to announce the Alpha 2 in December, that is not confirmed. That's just my speculation. But I have a good feeling that it's probably going to be announced in December, because that'll be a great Christmas present for us at the end of the year. Now, people have been saying March. People have been saying May. I mean, who knows? I really don't care when, as long as they make an official announcement. I don't care. Yeah. But let's say March. If they announce it in March, Richie, like, how can it be released in December of 2023?
So my whole video was like you said. I said announced in December for quarter 1.
Right.
So, and my whole thing behind this is, like, if you look at, I don't know if you ever saw Crowfall. It was like a Throne Wars MMO that
I
it
think
was
I did.
kickstarted like Ashes of Creation.
I did see that one.
It
Yes.
it was in alpha for like 2 years, and it was in alpha for so long that I think people just forgot about it and lost interest. And I'm sure Intrepid's aware of that. I'm sure Steven's aware of that because you have like Star Citizen is a big one too. That game's been in alpha for I don't even know how long now. But you don't want to create this game that's going to, especially with no NDA, be in alpha phases for a year or a year and a half, because all of a sudden all of that content and everything is already on YouTube. So, or Twitch or whatever. So the time that people get to actually play that game, it's like they've already seen everything. Which I think that in a way, Intrepid's going to prevent that because we're only going to get part of the world. We're not going to get everything. But I still don't imagine that they will have no NDA on an alpha for like a year plus. So my thought is they're going to fine tune everything as much as they can internally and with their Phoenix Initiative testers, which were the Kickstarter, I think like the really expensive Kickstarters.
Yeah, it
But
was.
yeah, but I imagine they're gonna do, and they probably are already doing as much testing as they can with them before they actually open it up to an audience. And I would imagine, like, personally, I would say like 6 to 10 months for Alpha 2. And it gives you enough time to go through. And again, I don't know if we'll go through because 64 classes is a lot to test. The node systems and like whatever bugs these things bring out. I agree it's a lot, but like, I just don't know if it'll be a full year of testing, you know?
I think in again, no offense to Crowfall, but I think Crowfall was a very not enthusiastic project.
Yeah.
Ashes of Creation, however, has so much eyes on this project. Now, I think testing and how feedback is correlated between us as the players, as a community, to Intrepid, and then back to us is going to be super vital and super important. Because if you have not just us as Ashes content creators, but if you have people like Tim the Tapman, Shroud, Asmongold, Josh Strife Hayes, Lazy Peon, all making these progress or update videos for Alpha 2, and it's getting better and better. There's more fixes. The hype is getting real. Like, it feels like a real completed game. I don't think we'll lose interest. And even if it's like that for a year or even a year and a half, because the thing with New World was as we went on, we discovered more and more broken or bugs and just more and more broken systems. And all these content creators are coming out and be like, this game is not going to be good when it releases. And if they don't delay it, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
That is a bad thing to be at as far as a game going. And I feel I'm just trying to account too for things that even though they work systematically, the players or us as the community don't like it. So it's a functioning system, but now we're giving feedback to Intrepid being like, this is dog water. Like, this needs to be changed.
There are a lot of things that are functioning systems on their internal build or whatever, and then once you throw 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 players at it, then all of a sudden it's a broken mess too. And I agree. And I think, like you said, I think the best way to go about it is like one system at a time. And I think that's going to be the best way to get feedback. And also, if they do it that way, you're not going to burn anybody out, especially if you fix that system, pull it out, put something new in. Which I go back to. I mean, I'm always going to go back to World of Warcraft because that's the one I put all of my time into. But like, look at Shadowlands, for example. Like, that was the same thing. They kind of like New World. They put out the beta. This is what it is. Everything was available from the start. People hated it. Blizzard ignored the feedback, launched it anyways, and then it was probably the worst expansion since Cataclysm. I mean, depending on your preference. Some people like Cataclysm.
Yeah.
But
or WoD, people are like that with WoD.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, I kind of liked Warlords of Draenor. I'm not going to lie.
I did too. I thought it was a great experience. The only thing was it lasted way too long. And they cut so much from it that the stuff that they tried to add, especially the naval ship yard, which was, I hate that. But everything else was actually really, really good about that game. I think still the best leveling experience I've ever had in World of Warcraft. Bar none.
Something like it wasn't to the extent of Cataclysm where it was like remaking these old zones that you fell in love with. It was kind of bringing you back to zones that made you feel like the world itself. I love the world because it felt familiar, but it was also different enough from
Right.
Outlands that it was its own thing.
Right.
But anyway, so like Shadowlands was a mess, and then like Dragonflight. I don't know if you followed the alpha for all of that, but it was the same thing like we just talked about. Is they decided to break it up into stages, so it was one zone
Hmm.
at a time, one
Hmm.
dungeon at a time, and I think because of doing the testing that way, it's going to be a lot more beneficial for them
Yeah.
once the game launches.
I think the other thing that I think force testing would just be really, really good, right? Is because everybody wants to try to min max this game so much, or just
Yep.
any game for that matter. But if you were to open up like 2 zones for the Alpha 2, and those zones are only available for like, let's say 2 weeks, and then you don't have access to those zones anymore. There's like an invisible wall. You can't go to the Riverlands anymore. And so now people are like, oh, like I was trying to make a video about it because I thought I found this maybe exploit when it came to the caravans for this certain road or whatever, whatever.
Yep.
Can't do that anymore. You know what I mean? So you like because people are going to try so hard to figure everything out. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I want to be that kind of content creator. I've been really debating on how I want to conduct my channel when it comes to Alpha
Yep.
2. Because I don't know if I want to make like these guides. And I know people will make them. I just don't know if I want my content to kind of be around that.
And that's where like I'm torn because my Sea of Thieves content it was guides. It was like where these collectibles were and how to do this and how to do that.
Right.
But like I don't want to do that with Alpha for one because the node system is going to make every single server different. So like
Yes.
you could be doing a quest line and need help, and then I'm doing a completely different quest line on my channel because my server is completely different than yours.
True.
But also doing it in an alpha and making guides, it's just pointless because you never know what's going to change, and it just feels like it's a waste of time. And I'd rather be like, okay, let's look at the character creator, and this is what I like, what I don't like, type of thing.
I think
So,
the kind of content that I would like to create, especially because I think a lot of theme park Andes like myself and others are probably going to play this sand park, for the first time. And I would probably want to do like more of a guide on like how questing works in Ashes, because I don't think it's going to be very similar to like a Final Fantasy or a Warcraft or Guild Wars experience, right? Because of the sand park elements, or the sandbox elements, I think are really going to influence just a completely different pace of questing. And it's not just going to be you do quest. It could be you getting experience from all these different sources where you're not going to have the kind of questing experience you're going to have in like World of Warcraft. So
yeah.
that's the kind of questing video that I would like to do. So it's not really like a guide per se, but it's just sort of like, hey, like it's going to be different. Like, so embrace the difference. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff.
And like I ran into that with Alpha 1 too, because I had an entire list of content that I planned on making just based off what they said was going to be in Alpha 1 and all that. And when I finally got into the Alpha, I scrapped half of it because I was like, all right, this isn't the type of this isn't a point in development where I want to make this type of content. And at the same time, I think if you go back and look, it's a lot of my content is more visual like progression stuff now that you go back and look at, like it's showing the node stages and how they work, or
Right.
showing like little collectibles that Steven hid throughout the world that aren't
Little
actually going to be in those.
sandals.
Yeah, because like that part of the map, I think the tropics will probably be the same, but the island part
Right.
wasn't. That's like it was the Alpha Zero island, so like that is a testing ground that's probably not going to be in the final version of the game.
Right.
So I just looked at like little fun ways like that to go through, and I mean I even did one on the character creation, even though there was like barely any character creation there, just to give people an idea of what to look at.
Right.
But I wasn't gonna go out and be like, well, this is how you take down this boss, because the boss could be completely different by the end of the development.
So I want to ask you a question as from one World of Warcraft player to another. How are you nervous about the rating potentially for Ashes of Creation?
So yes and no.
Okay.
My biggest concern with the rating is the fact that they're gonna be PvP crap fests essentially, because if when that new dungeon opens up, maybe not at the beginning, but towards the end, once the nodes are all developed and like the world is kind of like in this
Settled
solid
in.
state,
Yeah.
yeah, all of a sudden, and everybody's done. Let's say everybody's like they've done most of the dungeons and stuff that have in the current state of the world. So siege happens, takes down a new node develops, a new dungeon opens up. Everybody is going to be looking for that new content, and they're going
Mhm.
to all rush towards those open world dungeons. I feel like at least most of the big guilds, and then it's going to be more of fighting each other. I feel like than fighting the boss in a sense. And I mean,
Mhm.
some of them will probably require to team up, but like it's unfortunately in these types of games, there's always those toxic people out there who are gonna just try to ruin it for everyone else. Whether the corruption system's in play or not, I feel like it's just gonna be a mess with the open world dungeons. I like I do like the idea of it, and I like that they're making the dungeons large enough so there are multiple paths you can take to multiple bosses to try and split those people up. But I think my biggest concern is with the fact that they're open world in general.
Right. I mean, dude, even playing classic Wrath right now, because that's kind of like what I've been doing, it is so populated. And there are
Yep.
so many people doing everything. Like every quest that I go and try to do, there's 7 or 8 people doing the same quest that I'm doing. And
Yep.
I feel like that's literally going to be ashes. Like everybody's going to be running and doing everything. And you bet your bottom dollar that as soon as the first dungeon opens up in your server, like every guild, everybody is just going to, you know,
Yeah.
flood that freaking dungeon. And it's going to be a lot of fun for the PvPers. I don't know how it's going to work for the PvEers.
Well, and because you look at like AQ40 in Classic, I don't know if you how far back you played for WoW, but like the original when they opened up the gates and everybody was in Silithus doing
Right.
those quest lines and getting those resources and doing it, like it was probably one of the most fun experiences I had as an MMO player,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also just a nightmare in a sense too, especially when you and your guild are trying to take down this boss and you're just constantly fighting off these people. I think it'll be frustrating for a lot of people,
Right.
but I think the size of the world and the minimal fast travel will definitely help
Mm-hmm.
with it because people on the other continent aren't going to be running all the way to the west or to the east to
Right.
try and get to this dungeon because I mean it's going to take them an hour to get over there and you have
Mm-hmm.
to gather up your whole guild and your raid or whatever. So,
Right. I think I personally think that whenever the world starts opening up, I think it's going to get easier. I just
yeah.
think initially, like that first week is going to be really hard. And I
Yeah.
don't think people will kill people. I really don't. I think killing is not going to be as prevalent as people think because everybody's just going to want to level, everybody's going to want to just, you know, do all the things or whatever. There'll be people that'll PvP. But
Yeah.
because of the corruption system, I don't think it's going to be in this way that people are thinking. Like us as WoW Andes, right? Like you go to Stranglethorn Vale, you're dead. Like over and
Yep.
over and over and over. You're not going to have that in Ashes of Creation where someone's literally going to try to spawn camp you because you'll be so corrupted that you're going to be so ineffective against other players and you're going to drop your actual equipped loot. So once people start figuring out how severe the corruption is, it ain't going to be as prevalent. So as
Yeah.
far as the PvP fighting, I am more trying to figure out how mob tagging is going to work. Like not like boss, like world boss tagging. I'm just talking about like regular mobs.
Yeah.
Because in classic, if you tag a mob and then someone else tries to kill that mob, it's gray, meaning that
Yeah.
you
You
won't.
own it.
Yeah, you own that mob. No one else is going to own it. I don't know how the tagging is really going to work. I'm curious, how did it work in Alpha 1? If you were tagging a mob and someone else tried to come and help you, did they get any kind of loot or shared loot from
So
it?
So I honestly I don't really remember that much because there wasn't really really any loot system in place. When you killed something,
Hmm.
you basically got like a crafting material thing
The
and
certifications, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was like I can't remember what it was. It was like a element or some gem or something that you
Oh.
would, which isn't the whole thing, but it was basically the crafting material of Alpha One,
Okay.
and and then like some of the dungeon bosses and raid bosses dropped loot, some of them didn't. So it was really hard to figure out. But Alpha One, I think it was spread out enough because they had a bunch of servers and there was only the 10,000 ish people testing it that you didn't really feel the like it didn't feel like mobbed out like WoW Classic is or anything like that. So I don't think it's I think they said it was gonna be based on damage, like whoever does the most damage to a mob. will get the loot, which I don't know if I agree with, because if you're rolling a tank and all of a sudden
Right.
this mage comes along and just
Just
burst
blast it.
damages, yeah.
Hmm.
So I could be wrong on that. I don't remember exactly how they said it was going to work, but I know they've definitely addressed it before.
Right. I'm just kind of wondering when it comes to like certain quests, like you know, like a kill 10 elementals or whatever. Because in classic, if you are going to an elemental plane and there's 8 people there, and if they tag a mob, it's gray to you. It's really frustrating to do that quest because it takes so long. You gotta wait
Yep.
for respawns. I'm just curious, like what in what way would you want Intrepid to go? Would you want mobs to be like only owned by you as soon as you tag it, or would you want it to be more like retail and have it to where multiple people can share in the kill?
So basic like questing mobs and anything that's like, oh, get this, drop this item from this mob. I think it should be anybody who tags it or puts in any amount of damage should get the loot or the credit for killing the mob. But like when you get into like maybe not so when you get into like elite mobs requests and things like that where they want you to create a group and
Mhm.
go at it, I feel like then maybe they should have some restrictions on it. But again, like you said, and when you have 10, their goal, which is 10,000 players per server, right?
Mhm.
So having that many people on the server and doing quests on day one, if it's not you tag it and it counts for you, it's going to be a mess. And I think it's going to really deter probably not a lot of people, but at least some people away from the game for a while until it spreads out and slows down.
Right. And in classic, they kind of circumvent that by just having 5-player groups while you're
Yep.
questing. So that way, like everybody in the group gets credit, but anything else, anybody outside does not. And I think even then, it just creates a very frustrating experience for people that are trying to do it solo, or maybe are questing with just their buddy of theirs. And respawn timers, especially in classic, are just such a pain in the butt. Because like
Yep.
for a singular quest, sometimes I was waiting to kill 10 mobs almost 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And I'm on a full server. Like I'm on a very packed full server. So it's one of those things where, especially because we want Ash's server, you know, I think they said concurrence was going to be anywhere between 8,000 players to 10,000 players. Personally, I would want that upped to at least 15. I think 15 sounds better personally than 8 or 10. But like, where do you kind of sit when it comes to how Intrepid should handle the opening of Ashes of Creation, like the launch? Because I've heard so many people say, I personally think that Intrepid is in a lose-lose situation. I don't think that there's any real W to be had
Yep.
in how they open up the servers, or whether they do server merges after the fact. I'm just really curious because I don't think I've ever heard you talk about that.
Well, and that's the hard thing because with nodes, I feel like it makes server merging a lot more difficult.
Yep.
So honestly, I feel like their best way to do it is get a rough estimate of, all right, we're gonna open up this many servers, and then open up more as the queues start. And unfortunately, the reality with MMOs is people are going to stop playing eventually. Servers are going to die out, and there are going to be dead servers. And I don't really know how Intrepid would handle that at this point because, I mean, again, the nodes really just throw a whole new
Spin on all that.
dynamic into it. Yeah.
Yep.
But personally, I think some of the best parts of an MMO are the launch when you see hundreds and hundreds of players flooding in and running around and doing everything.
Right.
Because and I would much rather have that than have like World of Warcraft's phasing that they do now. Because
Right.
I absolutely hate phasing. It makes it feel like the servers are dead.
Right.
And even though you could be on a full server and you're still only seeing like 10 people in front of you.
Right.
And it kind of takes the masses out of the massively multiplayer.
Right. And especially like the one thing I was severely impressed with when it came to Alpha 1 was just the stability. I'm sure you as a World of Warcraft player can understand doing that castle siege with so many people there, and the lag was very freaking minimal. Yep. I mean, dude, Tol Barad, a 40 versus 40 battleground in WoW, you're lagging, your spells are delayed by like 3 seconds. Like it is terrible. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And I think Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, the battle royale that did, as much as people hated that, I think that really helped with their server stability for Alpha 1. Mm-hmm. Because I mean that was what it was meant for, was to put these large amount of people in this small area and see how the servers handle it, and then reiterate and change anything they need to change. And I think that really helped get Alpha 1 in a decent spot. I mean, there were still hiccups. There's still, I think they had the issue with the ghost mobs where if if a mob died, it still existed in the world. You just couldn't see it in a sense. So like the more people killed mobs, the more the servers got
Oh,
filled with
right.
these.
The
Yeah,
ghost problem. Yeah, I heard people talk
I
about that.
yeah, I probably didn't explain that right, but it's
Yeah.
something similar along those lines. But
It was creating basically like 10,000 ghosts that were
yeah,
still technically on the server, so the serviceability was super wonky. But
yeah,
as soon as they fixed that, it got
it worked great.
really well.
I was so surprised by Castle Sieges and how stable they were too, because like I mean I think I have several Castle Siege videos on the channel, and you can saw yes there are FPS drops and all that, and it's not perfect, but for something that is their first go at it for the public eye,
An
and
alpha, bro. I
yeah,
was super impressed. Like,
yep.
dude. No, go ahead.
And like I think I only had like 2 or 3 big lag spikes the entire time, and even in the end when everybody's in the throne room, like
Right.
I was still getting like it was like 30 FPS, which isn't great, but for an alpha with that many people, I was surprised. Like I was impressed with how well they did with it.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, for me, especially coming from WoW and all the FPS issues, the lag issues with a lot of people in a certain thing, I just was over the moon. And I'm like, if it can only go up from here, I'm just like, I can really see a 500 versus 500 really come to reality.
Well,
Like,
and it's funny because you have this like indie studio of Intrepid building an MMO who has better servers than New World, who Amazon was supposed to have the best servers out there, and they suck. Like you can't. It's sad, but like you can't even put like 10, 15 people in the same area in New World without getting lag. And World of Warcraft has had server issues since Classic. They had server issues with every single expansion. Every other game, like Diablo 3, had the worst server issues of it all.
oh
Overwatch
man,
2
yeah.
last week, you couldn't even get into Overwatch 2. And you'd think they would have learned over 15, 20 years of how to deal with these server issues. And it's just funny that an indie MMO is, or an indie studio is just kind of blowing them out of the water, was it?
I feel like with Blizzard, they have a 1992 Corolla, you know, that's for their servers. So Corollas are super reliable and everything like
Yep.
that, but they don't go fast, and they're kind of like, you know, not as efficient, you know, in other ways. And I just think that they've kept that car because it works. It doesn't work well, but
Yep.
it's reliable. And
Gets you to point A to point
it
B.
gets you to
eventually.
point A to point B. And I feel like freaking Intrepid got a Tesla up in there, and they're just Elon Musking it out over there, because it's
Yeah.
impressive, man. Like their technology, their networking, their back end, everything has just been really awesome from just from my approach and how I know just all these different MMOs that I've played. Yeah, I'm really, really impressed.
I would like to understand their hiring process and just like how many people they go through just to decide, all right, this is the one person they get, because their studio is filled with like fantastic employees. And I mean, there are a lot there, everyone has good game devs, but it seems like Intrepid is just like picking them out one by one. And their art team is fantastic, and
Bro.
their design team is great. And like everyone it seems they hire is just like top of the line, great employee.
Yeah,
Which
it's no, go
I
ahead.
mean, they're not going to really, go out there and say, "Oh, we have this employee who draws stick figures compared to this." But I mean, it's from what they show, it seems like they have a very well thought out process for hiring and picking who they want to pick.
I think they definitely refined it, because I
Yeah,
remember Intrepid hiring some people that had supposed experience, but they actually didn't. And you know, like they were just wanting to like see the game and wanted to work for Intrepid. So I think they've really gotten better with their hiring process and weeding out like fakers compared to the
yep,
actual people that have credible like experience. And yeah, it's been really awesome. And the fact that they've been growing and consistently growing, and it really makes it feel visceral. And again, like I know there's still people that think Ashes is vaporware, the game's never coming out, you know, it's, you know, but I feel like with my most recent video, I don't know if you want to talk about the whole Josh Strife Hayes and his
Uh,
opinion.
I haven't even watched that video yet. So
Uh-huh.
I've seen it pop up a few times now. I've seen your video. Narc, I think, put one out today with the
Yes, he
same
did.
thing, and I have yet to watch that video. It's on my list. I just haven't had time.
So if you're gonna watch it, I probably would watch Narcs because I don't follow Pantheon. I mean I know it exists. I don't follow its stuff at all. But I think you'll get better context with Narcs video than mine. I'm just
Yep.
reacting more so to what Josh said, and apparently he was confused because he was talking Ashes of Creation, but then mentioning Pantheon, like, or not mentioning Pantheon, but he basically was talking about beast taming, like out of
Hmm.
nowhere, and I was like, is he talking about animal husbandry? They haven't talked about that since like February of this year. But this past September's live stream for Pantheon, they talked about beast taming.
Yep.
So a lot of people were saying like, oh, he's actually talking about Pantheon, but he's saying Ashes of Creation. So it was a big L for Josh. I really hope he clarifies or at least says, hey, I was off the cuff streaming. I was painting Warhammer 40K figurines. Like I just talked out of my ass for a second. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Whatever. But he said something, and I mean, without you watching the video, about releasing a core game first and then worrying about expansion features later. And I did not know how to take that as a thing, because I think if he was thinking about Ashes in that, we both can agree that Ashes has a very huge core game
Yep.
compared to a lot of other MMOs. But who am I to say, that, oh, we don't need the naval, or oh, we don't need animal husbandry. I didn't put $40 million of my own money into this project.
Yeah.
Steven Sharif did. And if he wants to
It,
have these features, it's on him. Now, whether he is right or wrong, or whether he maybe couldn't have been a little bit less ambitious, is up to him. But from what I've seen, we've actually gotten like a little bit of condensing from 103 nodes to 85 now.
yep.
The map did expand, quote unquote, but the land density actually shrinked, because I think it was originally 480 kilometers squared, and now it's about 460. But now we have 720 kilometers squared on the water.
Yeah.
But I think there's just some gives and takes.
So, and I've talked about this a few times in some of my other videos too. And I understand how people get that perception, and like I see comments on it all the time. Is because there is so much to Ashes of Creation. Like a lot of MMOs launch and they have that one feature, and that's their game, and then they build the expansions off those features, and then you end up 10 expansions down the road with all of these features that you've forgotten about. Which
Mhm.
I think yes, Intrepid has like more than we're used to. They have the nodes, they have the naval content, the social organizations, PvP, arenas, sieges. I could go on, but they all tie into the node system. Every single thing that Ashes does ties into the node system. And I would look and I would say the node system is their core feature, and everything else is just like extra,
Right.
and everything else is supporting the node feature to be as great as it can be, or fail if it does, but hopefully I don't think it will.
I
uh,
I just think it's kind of, for them just to say, oh, we'll release the classes and the node system and then put everything else in an expansion. Like, I mean, isn't that why MMOs feel so bad when they launch?
yeah,
Because it's
I mean
bare bones, and you know what I mean?
that's
Like,
what New World was. And like I played the alpha for New World and I played the beta for New World, and like even like I was playing back when it was like an open sandbox, like build your own forts type of game for New World. Like I was that early into it.
right.
And I have always said that the core features or the bones of New World were great. Like the crafting feels great, the world is beautiful, but they did such a poor job at building around like what they had for essentially. So, and it ended up being there was no end game content. You had these settlements, what they're called, which are like the nodes from Ashes, but they're very dumbed down. So like you have the mayor or the governor that puts the taxes on it, and they can upgrade certain crafting stations, but that's all it was. And even to the point where like I think it was I don't I like I feel like at one point in the beta, if I remember correctly, all of the settlements were basically like copy paste of each other. Like they all felt exactly the same. And then they went and changed up the color of the buildings and things to make them feel different. And then here we are a year later, and they're finally updating the settlements to make them be unique,
Right.
which is something like, and that's exactly what happens when you put like the minimalistic features at launch and then build up a game around it. Yes, New World's player base is coming back, but if they had it great from the beginning, they could have maintained that 900,000, maybe not all of it, but they had 900,000
Maybe
players active at
400,000.
once. Yeah. Like even half of that would still be great if they
Right.
had done it from the beginning instead of trying to rebuild their audience. And I think that's what a lot of MMOs do, and like games in general do lately, is they put in like the base game and then they're like, oh, that, like Overwatch, for example. Overwatch launched with the multiplayer. And it's like, oh, you're actually gonna get the campaign story, which was the big part of Overwatch 2 next year. And like Halo Infinite dropped you the campaign and a very, I don't know if you're a shooter guy at all,
Oh,
but
yeah.
like the very like basic multiplayer, and half of the campaign was gutted. We didn't get half what they said. They're like, oh, we're just gonna add it as patches
Right.
down the road.
Yeah, again, like I don't know what he was really talking about, because as MMO players, I feel like that was something that we've kind of rebelled against, and just having these, basic bitch MMOs. You know what I mean? These
Yep.
very core, very bare bone MMOs that don't have any real end game features. It feels so minimalistic. It feels, and then the developers are forced to do these very repetitive grinds at the end because there is no content. So they have to make you grind it in a way that feels like it'll last them until the next major patch. And
Yep.
so again, I understand people's outside perspective that aren't in the Ashes of Creation know that they'll look at a game like Ashes of Creation and it'll be like, wow, this is way too much. But I feel like if they were to pull this off, we can actually see an upward trajectory on Twitch, or even on, like Steam charts, right? Everyone always looks at the Steam charts and sees this downward trajectory of
Yep.
players leaving. We can possibly see an increase because there's enough content to keep people engaged. And there's also quality content to be like, wow, this is unique. I've never done this before. I've never been in a singular server where we're contributing towards a node that's evolving and growing and actually accessing content that we've never done before. Like all that is going to be, I think, a really cool experience for a lot of players. And
Yep.
I think it is scary because people want this game as quick as possible. I've heard so many comments so far on my video on this game has been in development for so long. And I'm like, bro, it's only been 6 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and like the video that I just put out, I like the comments are hilarious. A lot of
I
like
saw some of them.
that's my favorite part of that video is the
Oh,
amount of,
God.
and like I get I was probably stretching it a little bit, but the engagement on that video is better engagement than I've had on the majority of my videos, because everybody is chiming. They're either like, no, you're wrong, or yes, or like, what about this compromise, like maybe Alpha 2 next year and the 2024 launch. But I don't know. I think Intrepid is, and I know Stephen Sharif has said this like numerous times. They're in a very unique situation where they're an indie studio building an MMO that has no like corporate entity rushing
Right.
them. There's no
Yes.
Activision saying get this out. There's no
Right.
like Amazon saying you need this because we need to make our numbers look good. It's they have the ability to take their time and build this fantastic MMO.
Right.
And I think a lot of gamers just aren't used to having that. But like in the end, I definitely like, I don't want Intrepid to rush at all. Like I want this MMO to be everything that they say it's gonna be.
Right.
And I would rather wait 5-10 years for it to be done than get a rushed basic feature game next year.
Right. And I guess for me, because I've done so much research on just MMO development, every major MMO that I've played has taken anywhere between 5 years to 7 years. Now we can make an argument. Okay, it took New World 5.5 years to come out, so why isn't Ashes out? We all can understand that 5.5 years, you can cook a chicken in the oven for 5 minutes. It doesn't mean it's ready by the end of the 5 minutes.
But New World Also, like, if you Google or not Google, go on YouTube and look up, like, early New World footage. They did a press release, like, 3 years before the game came out of what the game was supposed to be. It's not that game at all. The only thing that's the same is the world and the character models, and otherwise, it's an entirely different. It was an open world sandbox PvP game where it was, like, core PvP. There was no PvE whatsoever.
Right.
And then they scrapped that entirely and rushed out to make New World as it is now. And you can tell very much so that it's rushed and it was like half put together because I'm assuming they probably had the pressure of Amazon coming behind them. But it's sad because also, like, the developers that work on this game take the brunt of it. They were just doing their jobs, doing what they're supposed to, and getting all of the shit end of the stick because they put the game out when they were told they needed to put the game out.
I guess my most important question for New World, especially with this upcoming expansion, can you finally swim? Like, are they
No.
Bro, are you they have not added swimming in an expansion where they've been missing it for a year.
It's funny because I remember, I think it was like the beta, somebody asked, like, when are you going to be able to swim in New World? And the reply the dev gave was just like, you try swimming in a full body plate armor or something like that.
Oh,
and that was their reason for it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Could you swim in Ashes of Creation in Alpha 1?
Yes, you could. And you could go underwater too. Like, it wasn't just swimming on the surface. You could dive into the water. It's nothing there, but like, you could still do it.
You heard it here, folks. Ashes of Creation, way better game than New World already.
Has swimming.
It has swimming confirmed. Especially like, well, so I mean, all memes aside, right? I really do think that we are finally, hopefully, on an upward trajectory towards the MMO genre getting healthier. Like, Dragonflight seems to be doing a lot of things correct that Shadowlands and just previous expansions were doing very much wrong. Final Fantasy XIV is still pumping out quality story content. They're still doing what they do best, and they're doing it really freaking well. You have, New World coming out with their expansion. They've fixed so many bugs. The gameplay has gotten so much better. You know what I mean? That's really, really good. Lost Ark has been coming out with patches of content, new classes, new raids, new everything. Guild Wars 2 with their expansion. ESO just came out with an expansion in the summer.
Yep. And Guild Wars on Steam now too. Gave them a boost.
Right. So I feel finally we're at this point where I'm hoping that MMOs aren't treated as a joke anymore. I mean, yes, are some still pay to win like World of Warcraft and Lost Ark? Absolutely. Do you have some that are super pay to convenience like Guild Wars 2 or ESO? Absolutely. I guess for me, like, I'm just hoping that Ashes of Creation can really stick to the vision of Steven Sharif, because I feel like there's so much on him with making Ashes of Creation just a great launch, right? Just making the game that they set out to make and giving all the features that they said that they were going to promise, and giving us quality features, not just the bare minimum features, but just like actual quality features.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you this next. If we were to get that quality launch, if we were to like say 3 months before the actual launch, we know when the launch date is, the hype is insane. What do you think we will see numbers wise? Like, how many people do you think we can actually reach with this game?
Honestly, I don't even know. Honestly, I feel like, because like there's no MMO that has this much hype around it. And I mean, we're still years out. And I mean, you have Pantheon coming out, you have the League of Legends MMO somewhere down the road coming out.
Right.
But like, when Ashes first came out, Steven said that there would be very minimal marketing for the game, and they put the referral link in there to get people to share the game to other people trying to get something out of it, and like, it was just going to be word of mouth. And I think Intrepid has done an amazing job at sticking with that, and like, it shows. They said last year they had over 1 million people who had made an account on the Ashes of Creation website, and you were years out from the game. So yeah, I have no idea because I feel like if it's everything it says it is, we're going to be in like the 10 million numbers, like almost peak WoW numbers. That
Wow.
I might be stretching on that, but like if you ask like anybody who follows MMORPGs for the most part seem to know about Ashes of Creation, and if they don't, as we progress and get further into development, more and more people are going to find out about it,
Right.
and I think it's going to be a massive launch when it finally comes out.
And that was actually the problem with World of Warcraft. You remember back in vanilla, like back in 2004, they did not expect like how many people were going to play World of Warcraft. And they started out with like, I think it was like 120,000 players, and it just started growing like month after
Yep.
month, year after year. It was just getting insane. And they were like, there was a lot of server issues because there wasn't space. Like they couldn't get servers quick enough to fill them because every other server was already at max capacity, and there was still more people waiting in line to play the game. So I think that's will be an insane, like, because I mean, I don't know. I think Intrepid is probably planning on like 2 million.
Yeah. Well, and
probably
I mean, if
playing.
you look too, so New World when it launched, its Steam peak was like 900 something thousand players.
Right.
And that's and that peak is active players.
Right.
So that's not including everybody who logged on at different times of the day outside of that
Right.
peak. Because with all the time zones you had, like it's impossible to tell unless they actually release those numbers.
Right.
But I'd willing to bet that New World alone probably had 2 to 3 million players
Right.
spread out, and that were at some point jumped into the game during that launch.
Right.
Because I mean, 900,000 active players at one time is a huge number if you think about it.
Yes, it is.
Especially like worldwide, when it's 3 a.m. for one person, it's 6 p.m. for another person. I mean,
right,
time zones don't quite work like that, but
yeah, no, I got you.
But like yeah, it's really hard to say because I mean, you don't ever see accurate numbers like that. Like nobody comes out and says they had this many people at launch. They just show milestones of they've had this many sales, this many people bought the game, but how many people are still playing that game? How many people have actually logged in? Because if you look at, like, for example, like Xbox achievements or something, and you get an achievement that's like do the first mission in the campaign, and it's like, oh, only 20% of people have got this achievement. So how many people have bought that game, turned it on, and then did nothing with it?
Right. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I'm really curious because I know as of October 2020, there were 3 million registered accounts on Ashes of Creation's website. And again, this is after the whole hype of the initial Lazy Peon video of craziness, Asmongold reacting to it, all the big streamers reacting to it. I'm really curious what it's at now. Like after 2 years, because I'm pretty sure it's not 3 million anymore. It's probably like 4 or 5.
If you think it was 3 million, and then they opened Alpha 1 back up for purchase. Like Alpha 1, like originally it was done. You didn't have an Alpha key. You weren't in it. You had until this date to buy it, and then it was done. But they made that available for people to purchase again. And just the amount of people who probably made accounts off that alone. Like, I mean, I can even say like last year 2021, I think I gained probably like 400 referrals on my channel or on my.
Holy God, I'm all proud of myself because I have 20. I'm like, yay, 20.
I mean, I have upwards 800 or so.
Bro, that's freaking awesome, man. Like, I'm telling you, man.
Which is great. And like, I'm very fortunate
of
that because of my channel and the community that I've built around my channel. But like seeing, okay, so that's just me, the small YouTuber who has 7,500, well, it was like 5,000 subscribers last year. And like, if you think like, how many referrals did Lazy Peon get for that one video? You know?
Dude, he probably has like millions or like hundreds of thousands at least.
Yeah, and how many did he get for? I mean, he did the same thing. He did the updated video this year, which he also put the referral link, and I guarantee he got like a lot more.
Yes, he did.
Just in that video than I have total. So like,
no, for sure. I mean, I do want to kind of switch because we are kind of like at time, but I do want to talk to you a little bit more. I'm going to make an exception for you because, it's been a minute and I do have a lot that I want to ask you about. So even though you made 87 videos on the Ranger, I do want to talk. I do want to talk a little bit about the basic range attack, especially because you're, a World of Warcraft person like myself. Like, clearly, I think you really did like the direction that they are approaching for ranged combat. I actually really do too. I'm kind of going to go back on my video a little bit because I said that, the longbow probably needs a little bit more tuning than the short bow, but going back and really looking at that, because I probably watched that video like 17 times, but it's like when I first watched it, I wasn't watching it the way I usually watch that stuff. And again, it's because I have 8 different things usually that's going on: my work, kids, wife, stuff at home, all that stuff. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying it is what it is. Yeah. But I feel like especially when it comes to mobs are so much more than I thought that they were going to be. Because in World of Warcraft, they're just like cannon fodder.
It's like, oh, there's a boar, go kill it and get us meat.
Yeah, like they just auto attack you, and it's like nothing. Dude, this freaking Minotaur had like 6 abilities. Charge, bubble, like water bolt. It had a pet. It had what else could it do? There was like a couple of other things that it did. But all I'm saying is like it just felt way more of a fight compared to a lot of other like MMOs. So I just want to kind of get your little feelings for people that maybe didn't get to watch your videos and stuff like that, but just kind of you going in about what you felt with the Ranger reveal.
So yeah, and going off the mobs for a second, like we were talking about, my biggest thing with that, which I actually haven't mentioned in any of my other videos,
exclusive,
is the time to kill. I think,
right,
which it could be. It's hard to tell because Stephen was using his cheats and his
yes,
health got knocked down really quickly. But like he was also taking the mobs out a lot quicker than I feel like you should be able to. That's just my preference. Like, right. Even if you add like 20 more seconds to the combat of one of those mobs, I feel like it'd be in a better range, which was also my issue with Alpha 1, is I feel like with a lot of the mobs, it was too easy in a sense. Like, you could just go through and just kill these guys and there's no challenge. But again, that was Alpha and there's no content test. So I'm hoping that they come away from that. Ranger overall, like, I love, and like, I feel like the movement, and I've said this 100 times now, the movement is great. Being able to roll around and dodge and be able to jump and shoot and distance yourself from the mob you're fighting is, I think, a crucial part of the Ranger. And I think we'll see this a lot more as we see more of the class kits too, and it's really going to play off of those, because like you could have like a Ranger tank combo, which might not be as much about closing the distance and more about like just
using your melee. Yeah, like I think it's going to kind of be similar to like the classic version of Survival Hunter, right? You're going to be able to like get up close and personal, do some stuff. I don't know if they're going to go the trap route, right? Because everyone's saying traps, but I think they're saying that because they're WoW Andes and that's what they know how to do.
I don't know. Before the Ranger came out, I did the Everything We Know About the Ranger video also, which went through some of the Alpha Zero abilities. They had like traps and snares in there that would like slow the enemies, and which I don't know. Again, it's hard to tell if they're still in there or not, but I think a lot of those abilities will fall into different class kits. Like maybe you have the Falconer, which I think is the Ranger Summoner, which I'm assuming you're going to use pets more to like help keep the mobs off you, whereas compared to like Hawkeye, I think the Ranger combo, is that what it is? I bet will be more like trap, like you're going to use traps to like bridge the gap or something like that. So I think it's really going to, once we see the class kits is when we're really going to be able to tell how it actually feels, because right now it's just the Ranger. You have the base Ranger using a bow and arrow, and then every time, whether it's a cleric or a mage or a bard combo, I think it's really going to change up how you want to play each version of that Ranger.
Right. Let me just say this, because I've never said this on any of my videos, so I'm going to give an exclusive right here as well. But
this is your video, so
well, yeah, I guess so. It's not an exclusive, but you heard it here first. I really, and I don't know if you can speak to this. But it seems to me that every time we get these like playthroughs, it's like Steven's like, oh crap, we have the Ranger reveal. Guys, we need to get on the client right now, and I gotta make a video in like 15 minutes. Like, can we get a little bit more of an organized video instead of Steven being like all off the cuff? And like, I want it to feel like I would love, first of all, someone else to play, you know, first of all, maybe the actual person designing the Ranger, and then actually seeing this is Alpha 2, like level 10 gear. It's, you know, this is what it feels like. That way we can start getting some more accurate representation of what damage feels like as a level 10 compared to another level 10 mob, seeing how long that time to kill is realistically, how much damage the Minotaur would actually do to a player, and just seeing like different variants like that, you know what I mean, like an actual well put together video. Like, you have a whole month, Intrepid, to make, if you, especially when you know we're gonna do Ranger, like it always seems to me that they get like the night before, 2 nights before, and they just do a quick video. You know what I mean? Like,
I think part of this is, if you followed the Ashes of Creation development at all, Steven has tended to, more times than not, jump the gun on his promises and then have to roll them back. So that could be part of the reason why it's always last minute. And part of it could just be they just want the Ranger to be as refined as it possibly can before they show this video. So it's hard to tell, but I agree. Like, I would rather see more of like a full, like, in-depth explanation of, okay, this is the Ranger, it's only 4 abilities, but this is what this video does, this is what you can, or this is what this ability does, this is what you can use this ability for. And then, like you said, like, don't have the cheats in there. Like, if he's gonna die, let him die. If he wants to use a cheat to teleport back to where he was, that's fine, or set the spawn point so he just spawns there. But like, part of this is I want to be able to see like how fast the character's dying and how challenging it actually is, which you aren't going to see if it's impossible for them to kill Steven. But part of that is too, is like, maybe it's just because those systems aren't refined or in a place where they want them to be yet. So they're not quite like, they're ready to show you the Ranger, but they're not ready to show you actually how well the mobs are going to interact and play out with combat. That's really my only explanation of why it could possibly just be thrown together last minute. But Steven, like, no matter what, he always seems like he's rushed for time. Which is when he's running a massive studio like this and hiring people constantly and overseeing every other part of the MMO, and you don't have Jeffrey Bard working anymore. He's had this executive assistant position posted. I don't know if I actually didn't look if it was still posted or not, but like, he's trying to take the load off himself. You can definitely tell. And I feel like as we get further along, and once he actually is able to take some of the load off, we'll probably see more of that. But again, I can't speak for him. I can only just assume.
I honestly, and you know, Steven, if you're listening, because I know you watch my 1v1s all the time, you really got to get a virtual assistant. Like, if I understand that you probably are still looking for a real life assistant that you can have physically there with you, but if you're getting triple booked on meetings, like, you need an assistant of some kind. And I'm sure Margaret's already doing enough on her plate that she can't also be trying to handle your stuff on top of hers. So literally just get a virtual assistant to just make sure you're not getting triple booked or double booked or whatever. And that way you can maybe do like a little bit more proper video stuff for us to be able to watch, you know, because again, I think at the end of the day, I don't mind it for other kind of systems. Like, I think the presentation when it came to the character creator was totally fine. You know what I mean? But I think especially when it comes to combat and anything combat related, like, we need a little bit more information than just what we're seeing. You know what I mean? Especially to try to prep you guys up for Alpha 2, because you guys are mentioning Alpha 2 a lot more nowadays, because I think y'all are getting ready to like start amping up for that. So we kind of need to give a little bit more realistic feedback in that sense.
Well, and so do you have the guy in your comment section named Hill? I know he goes.
I do not, but I have seen them. He's Hank Hill on the little picture.
Yes, photos Hank Hill, and he's in mine and Narc's comments all the time, and a few other content creators. And
He's a Pantheon
Like
person, right?
he's a Pantheon person. He's the most negative Ashes of Creation person I've ever seen. But it's nice to have him in the comments every once in a while because it kind of like puts you back into reality for a minute. Like riding this hype of, oh, Ashes of Creation is going to release next year, then he pops it and be like, no, you're dumb, and this is why. And like one of the things that he keeps commenting is Ashes of Creation doesn't show any actual gameplay,
Right.
which he's right and he's wrong. And it took me a little bit to actually like process what he was saying, like because he comments that and I'm just like, oh, what do you mean? I got gameplay right here. But like it's we didn't get the UI until this past month,
Right.
which I know they're working on this stuff, but like I think Intrepid could do a bit more, making it feel like you're in an MMO and not just you're in this box.
Right.
Because like when they did the melee combat, it was, all right, we're fighting rock monsters over in this one area. Whereas I'd like to be able to see Steven run around a bit more and be like, okay, we're going to fight minotaurs over here, then we're going to go fight these creatures and
Right.
show more of the world and show a bit more of the exploration and make it feel more like a gameplay video than like
Right.
a scripted, we're going to shoot the bow and arrow at these 10 mobs over and over again.
Right.
And I think seeing different mobs and different parts of the world will actually help you understand that class more because when you go up against one mob, you might take it on completely different than you would another, depending on what his abilities are and his health and all of that. So I
Right.
think if they put more variety into what they're showing, I think it would go a long way for the community as a whole and actually pumping people up a little bit more than just being in this one circle, just killing the same things over and over again.
And believe me, I love the Riverlands, but it would have been really nice to have seen another zone.
Yeah,
You know what I
like the
mean?
desert. They've been showing the desert for months. Like I would even love to go back to like the tropics. Like it was an
Oh,
Alpha
right.
1 zone, and yes, it's something that we've seen a lot of, but I want to see the progress. Like I would personally, like as much as I love the Ranger, I would have rather seen this range combat with the mage and showing how much progress they have made from the Alpha 1 mage to the current mage.
Yeah.
Because seeing a ranger that we haven't seen since Alpha Zero, when we didn't actually see any abilities or how it was actually functioning, it was more like a rendered cinematic more than anything. I feel like it's not showing the progress as much as taking something we've already seen and showing it in the Alpha 2 state over the Alpha 1 state.
Right. And I just want to ask you, what class are you looking forward to playing?
Uh,
Like, what's your
that
class?
that I don't know. So in WoW, I mean, right now I'm playing the Death Knight. I've always been a Death Knight or Paladin in WoW, and then a
Mm,
mage a little bit.
I made a
In New
paladin.
World,
Yeah.
I'm rocking the bow and a spear. So like I'm more of like a ranger and doing melee here and there. And like there's just I feel overwhelmed. And the same thing with the race. It's like I've always been a dwarf. I want to be a dwarf, but now I'm like, which do I want to be? The Dunir? Do I want to be the Nakua? But oh, the Vec look nice and the Pyre
Right.
look nice. And like there's so much choice to Ashes of Creation that I think it's gonna take me a while to actually find out. But if I had to pick right now, I would say probably the Necromancer. Just because like I'm more of a melee or a bow and arrow type of guy than a caster, and I want to take a whole new direction in Ashes. Like I want to expand
Mm,
what I am, but also like it's because you're not locked into your secondary archetype. So like I could pick the cleric and be more of a paladin-esque type of character, and then decide, you know what, I'm gonna pick the summoner as my secondary archetype instead, and kind of combine the two, and get something in the comfort zone, but something new at the same time. So I don't know. Ask me again in 2 years. I might have an answer for you.
See, I'm the same way, dude. In WoW, I mean, because I've been playing it for so long, like I have every class level to max, so I kind of enjoy everything. There are more classes that I gravitate towards more.
Yeah.
I love the enhancement shaman. I love protection paladin, retribution paladin, death knight, blood. I love blood death knight. More so probably than the DPSs. But yeah, like I don't know what I would want to do in Ashes when it comes to a class either. Like because the other thing about it too is that I'm really worried about these augments, and I'm really worried that the augmentation isn't going to take the class deep enough for it to actually feel different, and it's just going to be this flavor that is going to feel terrible like when we
Yeah.
practically do it. So
Which it's because, I mean, 64 classes in general is a massive undertaking,
oh, I
and they've
know.
already said it's not gonna be completely balanced, but I want it to be more than just, "Okay, this is a different visual effect than this augmentation, and it moves you 1 meter further." Like, I want it to
Right,
feel like it's its own thing.
right,
Like, I want the, like, ranger mage to feel like its own thing compared to the ranger and the cleric, instead of it just feeling
right,
like a ranger with a little bit of flair added to the side, so
right. I you know, it's kind of, this is like a super unpopular opinion, I'm sure, but you know, I wouldn't mind it if it was this way. I would love if each class has a Path of Exile talent tree, and they're all separate from each other. So
yep.
as a cleric, you have these different paths you can take to go into cleric, cleric summoner, cleric ranger, cleric tank, you know, so on and so forth. And you can start allocating points in different ones and kind of be this very unique thing. I know that sounds also like a tuning nightmare. And again, you know, all I'm looking for is depth. What are the talent trees going to look like? Are they going to be very rudimentary like Lost Ark, where it's this tripod system and it feels not as unique as someone else? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it just feels very watered down. Like or is it going to be similar to like Dragonflight, where there could potentially be a overall class talent, like a base talent tree for your class, and then there's a separate talent tree for your augmentations? Like, we don't know. And I think
Yep.
that's what a lot of people like myself are probably, if you're thinking of another system that people are more so trying to look for other than combat, I think it's that. It's how deep are these classes going to go?
Well, and on top of that, so you have the augmentations, but you also have weapon skill trees too. So like
Yes,
you
you do.
spec into your class, and then you're gonna spec into a weapon on top of it,
Right.
and like how different is each weapon gonna feel from one another? And depending on which class is wielding it, is it gonna have different specs for a cleric than a mage, or is it gonna all be the
Right.
same specs on that one weapon? Like every sword's gonna have the exact same skill tree. Like
I think there was,
there's
or go ahead, go
There's
ahead.
a lot sorry. There's a lot to it, and, like, I feel like, I mean, honestly, it's we're not gonna know until, Intrepid shows us, unfortunately, but
There were some people that I saw where, you know, because they've been saying for so long that in Ashes of Creation you can wield whatever weapon you want to wield. And after seeing the Ranger, people were like, oh, so if I want to play the Ranger effectively, I have to use a bow and arrow. Like, I can't use another range weapon. Like, if I was ever wanting to be a wand ranger, which I don't know why you would want to use a wand or a staff maybe or something like that. Um, I don't know why, but I mean, maybe that's what you wanted to do. Do you find that it's actually kind of disingenuous for them to have been saying for so long that you can use whatever weapon you want, but now there's going to be certain things that are locked to certain weapon types
so
or
so
abilities anyway?
they've always said that, like, you can use whatever weapon, but you're gonna might not wanna use it depending on how you're playing or what you're playing.
Right.
But, like, I honestly I like the idea of it being open. So, like, you might not be very good using a sword and shield as a mage, but, like, being able to still do that, I feel like it's more of a role player thing than anything. But it's like it just gives more customization and more variety, and
Right.
I like it. What I don't necessarily like, which I also made a video on this at one point, is the no weapon specific skills. Which,
Right.
I mean, it makes sense to not have weapon specific skills when you can use every weapon and they're not trying to lock you in. But like in the melee combat, the whirlwind with dual wielding daggers, it just felt wrong to me. Like a whirlwind ability is a two-handed sword. You're grasping onto it with two hands and you're spinning in a circle.
Right.
Like, now, are you going to be wielding a wand and do a whirlwind as well? And it's going to be as effective as doing a two-handed sword? Like, some of them just don't make sense to me.
Right. And again, coming from WoW, I mean, they did this all the way back in Classic. Like, you couldn't shield slam without a shield. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't have a shield equipped. You just couldn't do it. And I know some people are making the argument that, oh, well, there's a magical hammer that comes out from the freaking sky and slams on the ground. Why can't you do that for a shield? Like, just a magical shield pops out of nowhere and now you can shield slam or shield block or whatever. I mean, either way, I kind of don't mind in a sense, but I just feel like it makes those weapons it makes weapons better when it is kind of locked in a sense. It gives it more personality and stuff like that. You can still do whatever you want to do outside of that, but I think either way, when it comes to competitiveness or when it comes to you wanting to be the best, there's going to be certain weapon types that are just going to be better than others.
Yeah.
Like you can't
And
expect them to tune it all evenly. Like
it's like talent trees too. It's like, yeah, you can give all of these abilities that you can pick from and like branched out on all these different branches on the tree. But in the end, every competitive arena mage is going to be rocking a very similar build
right,
because it's always how it works out. There's always going to be that one build that is better than the rest of them because of one or two certain abilities. And I
right,
don't think no matter how hard you try to balance it, I don't think you're ever going to be able to take that away. So
right,
I mean, I guess the weapons in the same ways works with like the talent trees is you can do it your way if you want, but you're never going to be that great player or that great or on that great arena team doing it that way. So it's either suck or do it this one specific way.
right. Well, just to kind of close it out, final question. What are your
Uh,
predictions for October's live stream? What do you think they're going to show us?
I am hoping for naval because
Mm.
I feel like they've been teasing naval content for a while. Like they've had
Mm-hmm.
the boat sailing in the background. There's been questions on Twitter when they do like their community questions of like what would you do? They did one for naval content, showed the guy on the boat, and I feel like naval has got to be close to be a presentable state at this point. It's something like we saw like boat aspects and boat models being worked on like 2 years ago, and I feel like we got to be getting close to being able to see Steven set out on a ship, and even if it's just like shooting cannons off and doing some like deep sea fishing or something, I feel like we got to be close to that. I really hope we're close to that because I want to see naval content.
I personally think what we're going to see for October is going to be more Halloweeny kind of things. I think we're going to see finally the art side. We're probably going to see the full Tolnar, like full body concepts, different variations of the Tolnar compared to the 3 heads that we saw.
Yep.
I think we're also going to see an actual event. I think we may see some more in-game footage of an undead event. I think they showed off the Scourge or like the undead model, which looked really, really awesome in this last live
Yeah.
stream. I think that's what they're planning on doing, because I think, remember when Maggie was talking, not this live stream but the previous live stream, where she's like, I was really wanting to do something special with the Tolnar, and I think she was referring to this month's or this upcoming month's live stream. That's my prediction personally, and I think they may show the Underrealm. I think they may
Keep
show the
keeping
Underrealm.
keeping my mouth shut. But
Do you
um
know something? Can you give me an
I
exclusive?
don't know anything. I try to dig for information sometimes, and sometimes I think I'm on to something, and sometimes I'm on just like they set me off on a completely different trail. But
It's all good.
um, I if they're gonna do something spooky, I think they should show the summoner class and like the necromancer side to it personally.
Dude, they could totally do that. You never
But
know.
because we haven't seen caster combat yet. We've seen the
Mm-hmm.
range combat, we've seen the melee combat. We haven't seen caster support or like tank. So
Right.
we still have all of that plus the more because they say basic. So like I'm curious what their version of in-depth combat is going to be. Is it going to be more archetypes and more abilities? Which I don't think we're quite there yet, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But no, because in the live stream, Maggie said that the concept art was originally she was going to break up the Tolnar
Yeah.
and like wanted to send it out to content creators or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Steven was like, no, 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 let's just show it now because Steven's a man of like, you know what, I'm proud of this work. I'm going
We're
to show
doing
it
it
to the world
live.
right now. But so I don't know. Like I'm going to stick with my naval content because that's what I really want to see. But
Yeah, I think Naval's gonna be November. I really either November or December, I think is a good one.
I mean, December will it like December's got to be something big. Like I mean,
Oh, for sure.
Steven is a very like festive person. Like if he saw his house during COVID when they're out of the office, he has that thing decked out in Christmas decorations, and they give us the Unreal 5 reveal last December. So like I feel like
Right.
we need something on par with that, or if not better.
Right.
And I think naval content would definitely do that, but I would much rather see, Alpha 2 date announcement That
Well,
way
I
my
mean, Alpha
predictions
2.
will stand true.
So Alpha 2 date announcement is just an announcement. Like, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, we're gonna have a 5-minute, stream of just us saying
Yeah.
Alpha 2 date. Like, there has to be something of a system to
Steven could make
announce
an
as well.
hour-long stream out of the Alpha 2 announcement. That man could talk about the announcement for an
You're
hour.
not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But Richie, dude, thank you so freaking much, man, for reaching out to me and just keeping a dialogue open with me. I mean, I really love your content. Keep being a machine, pumping out that content, dude, because
The machine's gonna slow down eventually because I feel like I'm already outpacing the content I have available.
I know,
So
dude, don't burn yourself out. Seriously. Like,
yeah.
I think even if you were to go to one video a week, I don't think anyone would hold that against you.
I ain't going that low.
Oh,
My
dang. It's like, oh, no. I can't do that.
I was actually thinking about this earlier. Currently, I'm on the every other, so I do a video, then a short, and then
Right.
a video, and then a short, and then every day I do a video, I also do like a community post on the channel.
Right.
So I think I'm gonna at least cut it back a little and do video, community post, short.
Right.
So like it's now 3 days instead of 2, but we'll
Right.
see.
Yeah.
See, I can
And
say this and then
I just want to say
log off
this.
here. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to say this definitively. Best race is Renkai. Just saying, because you're doing the whole best
Oh.
races of era. It's Renkai,
Nothing-
Richie. It's Renkai.
Nothing's gonna beat the elves. I've decided that. Like no matter what I throw
Dude,
out
they've
here.
been owning every single race so far in y'all's
How
thing.
many have
It's
I done? Let's
insane.
see. I've done 1, 2, 3.
Pyre
I've done
elves.
5 so far, and the elves have won every.
Pyre
single
elves,
poll.
yep, have just been dominating. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yep.
But have you put up them against the Renkai yet?
I haven't done any orcs yet, so I might do that next. I'm
Zug
saving
Zug.
the Tolnar for last because I feel like the Tolnar are just gonna be. They're gonna win.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the most 3 popular races so far have been the Renkai, and the Renkai, the Tolnar, and the Pyre. Pyre have been
gotta
super.
I really want to see the new Renkai models with
Me too.
with the concept
Bro.
they showed.
I'm so hyped
So,
for it. Like,
Maybe
there's
we'll get that because that
yeah,
was 2 months ago. So maybe we get those models this month because it seems to be like every couple months they show the concept and then they show the models. So
yeah. I think they've really been doing a great job with their updating of all of the models. Like, I really wasn't expecting to redo the humans because I thought they looked great the way they looked before. But
well, and especially
right
because they're dropping these what you think is like the finished model, and then they post a feedback thing, and they're like, oh, by the way, we're redoing it. Here's the concept for the new one. And you're like, what? Where did that come from?
yeah, I think it's because of the feedback. I think people are
Yeah.
saying like, oh, okay, like we can improve that or we can change that. Or I really want to see what the Valoon look like with these Jin influences on their body with the ethereal scars. Like, I'm really curious what that looks, because I really feel like if they show a full body of like ethereal scars and looks really badass, people will flock to that freaking race too. So
and they have to make it feel different from the Kalar because like you don't want just 2 humans that feel like very similar, which is like the Pyre and the Empyrean. Like originally, I think the plans, if you look at the early concept artists, are just kind of like these same looking elves, but a little bit different build wise. Which then they go with the horns and the antlers and the more nature feel. And I don't know. It needs to distinguish. If you're gonna do like the sub races, you definitely need some differences in there.
For sure. Richie, thank you, man. Like, this was freaking cool to chat with you, and especially in this long format, man, because we always get your videos, which I really love the length of your videos, by the way, just to kind of say that, because there's a lot of content creators that always want to do these 10, 12, 15-minute videos, and I just really appreciate that you give 5 to 8-minute videos. Like,
thank you.
It makes it so good, very bite-sized, very enjoyable to watch. So
when we get off here, we'll plan the next stream. So in like 10 months from now, we might actually get it done.
Yes,
All
dude.
right.
I honestly would love to chat with you when Alpha 2 is going. And just to say, are you going to be streaming Alpha 2 like on Twitch?
It depends on when it is, because if Alpha 2 falls next fall, all of my kids will be in school. And then I'll have the house to myself during that time, and I'll actually be able to stream.
Right.
But otherwise, I can't plan anything right now with streaming. So I might not. I did stream a little bit for Alpha 1, but I was basically like, here you go to my wife, take this money and leave the house for a weekend.
Right. Oh, dang, man. Well, guys, I'll have all of Richie's links. I'm sure this content creator for Ashes. All of my subscribers definitely do know you. But I will put him, I'll put your Twitter YouTube, all the socials, all the ways to get a hold of Ritchie. But yeah, dude, thank you so much. This was probably the 1v1 I was looking forward to so freaking much. The anticipation was like palpable for me for this one. So I'm so glad it was great.
I honestly, I figured you were just reaching out to get another person on there, and then I messaged you yesterday and I was like, hey, I can do tomorrow, and then like you're just like, yes, and I'm like, oh, that's not the response. I feel like, oh, sounds cool.
I was like, yes. I was like, finally, the gods. I even told my wife, I was like, babe, I was like, guess who messaged me? She's like, who? I was like, Ritchie. And she's like, who? I was like, dang it, babe. I was like, you messed it up. But dude, thank you again, man. This was freaking great. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. It helps push this video out to the algorithm, to more of our Ashes people to find this podcast and all of its Ashes glory. Subscribe to my channel for more content, and of course, definitely subscribe to Ritchie because he's freaking awesome. And we will see you guys in the next one. Later, guys.